Hi, hi, Kun Richard. Oh, he mute.
Hi.
So sorry. Yeah,
Hi.
already
Hi,
heard
Kunaran.
you.
Hi.
Yeah,
Hi,
good
Kun
evening.
Richard. Yeah. Okay. You guys can hear me clearly, right?
Yes, very well.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, now I think that today we have I think that you can call it the hero or something, the idol for many people about the investment professionals. Firstly, we as a GPA would like to thank you for your time to join us in the meeting, and I think that it is in the live. So, Kun Richard, at the first, can you introduce yourself a little bit to make the attendant to know you more?
Sure. First and foremost, let me thank both as well as GPA for the opportunity to get invitation to be on your channel. My name is Richard, and I work for Global X for over coming close to 4 years, and I've been in the ETF space for about 13 years now. And so I've always been very interested in ETFs. And so I'm very glad that somehow, ETF took off in Asia. So it was very different when I first started 13 years ago, where ETF wasn't big in Asia, but now it has definitely grown in scale, grown in size, and many more investors are now familiar with ETFs. So that's a bit of my background. Happy to answer any questions or to share more of my experience and my background over the next 1 hour or so.
Sure. Okay. I think that before we deep dive to the ETF strategy for the Global X or your research, I asked for some insight. I think that many of attendants want to know about your designation. We want to know about your motivation to take the certification as well. What is your motivation to take? I think that your designation is quite, I think, one of the most privileged in the world.
Continue, can I add a little bit of more information about Mr. Richard? As Kunti mentioned, I think Mr. Richard have really a lot of certification. Or you have CFA, CAIA, FRM, CMT, CMA, CFP. Okay, you name it. CFTE, CIPM, CETF, FMBA, SCR, and FDP. I think that cover all of that you have.
I think that if GPA will invite Mr. Richard at the second half of this year, Mr. Richard will get 2 or 3 more for sure. Please tell us about the motivation and something insight for you.
Yes. So I think it's always a great opening question when people look at my background and what I do at Global X and the long line of designation or the certification that I bring to the table. So in fact, tomorrow I'm taking one exam tomorrow.
Wow!
Yes. But I'm very happy to share that a lot of these certificates came about at different opportunity. Like, for example, when I did FRM, it was during the Silicon Valley Bank, where they had the issue, right? When the interest rates started coming up, their long-term bonds were priced downwards, and that caused a stress in their balance sheet, right? So it was at a point in time where I thought that I really wanted to find out how banks manage their capital adequacy, look at their asset liability matching. And so that's when I took an FRM. And likewise, the other one was, I'll give you an example, is the CAIA, which is on alternative So that was back in 2019 when a lot of the market started talking about private assets, alternative assets. There was this huge interest in private assets. I would say that there were interests after the GFC, but we saw it coming up very strongly 2019 onwards, 2020, especially during the COVID period, where there was this low correlation or uncorrelation with private assets and public assets, right? So you think about your private credits right now is a topic. But back then it was really coming up because there was this very low correlation. So each time where there was a significant event in the market, it got me thinking about how can I also make sure that I'm, like have that background to speak about it and knowledge to talk to clients or to even for my own discussion internally, because sometimes we look at what the new asset classes could be in terms of putting into ETFs or in terms of product ideas. So all these help informed. So over the last, I would say 12, 15 years, I managed to complete somewhere between like 13 to 17 different certifications. And tomorrow I'm taking one more, so that is on ESG. And then in April I will take one more, which is on macro strategy. Wow. So a bit more on global macro. And I'm happy to share that I'm starting my PhD research at the end of May as well, part-time.
How could you manage your time? Is it that you go abroad?
So
you go to Thailand? Yeah.
So a lot of these comes around with interest. I would say the number one thing is interest, because if you were to think about like financial markets, they move so fast. There is so many things that's going on. There are a lot of correlations that are being tested right now in the markets as we speak. So each time when I get to the point where I start to feel that there is something that I need to know, so it becomes like like you want to go out there and find out as much as you can. It's surely not easy because I got family, I got work, I've got to travel and all. But I do think that it is not as difficult as most people think. If you just put in 1 to 2 hours or even half an hour in a day, you'll be able to get through the exams. Yes, that's how I feel.
Wow. Thank you. Very motivation to the people in Thailand that you may want to take the exam now. Because I think that in Thailand, they are quite quite in the emerging or the developing phase for the investment. As well, I think they may follow Singapore 10 to 20 years. So that's why I think that the next question is about that. How could you share about Singapore financial investment sector about compared to Thailand, because I think that you went to Thailand many times years. You can share us about the difference.
Sure. I would point out like in Thailand, based on my experience and based on some of the findings that I've done, it is very, very impressive that the investment markets, the mutual fund market in Thailand is very sizable. Where you think about the difference in terms of the GDP per capita, you think about those kind of metrics. Yet it seems to me that Thai locals, Thai investors are very interested in investing. So from mutual funds all the way to single stocks, and now more recently to DRs and more. Yeah. We are seeing that there is a lot of innovation in the Thai markets. So when you contrast that to Singapore, we have a smaller population than Thailand. That's for sure. And a lot of the wealth in Singapore are because of our position as a wealth hub. So it becomes a place where a lot of high net worth would park their wealth here. But if you compare the local investors here and the Thai investors, I do think that there are different in terms of the investment mindset, the investment approach, and also the interest in trying to find out more about the markets itself. So in Singapore, I would say we are focused a lot more on really just building a secure nest egg, right? And because our retirement fund, which we call the CPF, gives an guaranteed return of 2.5% to 4%, depending on the different accounts. So that makes the motivation for a lot of Singaporean investors not as strong as we would love to, because we do think that with a higher inflation in the coming up, as we've seen after COVID, right? I think that has also slowly shifted Singaporean investors, especially the younger population, with fintech knowledge, with online trading apps. I think that has shifted the conversation. So if you look at where generations of Singaporeans have been in the past, it was just Singapore equities. And now you see that the younger generations are moving into US equities, Hong Kong equities, and then now with the Singapore equities market picking up, the interest is also into the Singapore market as well. But overall, my trips to Thailand, I'm very, very impressed by the level of interest. Second, the level of literacy, investment literacy, financial literacy in the Thai market. And third, there is this eagerness in learning, in trying to get much better. And it's really true, because I get a lot of LinkedIn messages or even online as well, asking about certificates, markets, outlook, thematics to invest in. So there is so much that I do feel very impressed and very proud of what the Thai local community has become over the years.
Sure, I think that maybe firstly, I think that I want to thank for your about the impression about Thai people. I think that if in the future we could invite you to perform some local meeting if you will go to Thailand in the remaining of the year as well, to share something on site.
I'm more than happy to, yes.
Right. So, Kun Pai, do you have any question before we will go deep dive to the question?
Oh, okay. Or thank you, Kunti. But you can still go on. But I just mentioned, I'm still impressed by your answer earlier about how about your inspiration to take a lot of professional certification. That or your answer is really simple, but yeah, it does because as market evolve, you evolve as well. That very great.
Yeah, very impressive. Because I think.
Can I also just add one more? So sometimes I get a question like, when you study all these certificates, do they repeat? Do they have chapters that they repeat, like equity valuations, for example, or fixed income valuations, or even something as simple as demand and supply curve in economics? Well, so I would say that there are definitely overlaps that you will see. Sometimes it repeats, and the question then is, what value does it add if I take a second cert that has got 20% of repeat or overlap with the first certificate? So I personally found that, when there is a repeat itself, because when whatever that you study today, I think if you just go for the exams, the moment you leave the exam, you start to forget, right? As simple as Macaulay duration. modified duration. Do you know the formulas, right? Like these are very basic fundamentals, but we forget. So each time I get the opportunity to revisit them as part of a new certificate, I do think it's a good refresh. Not like learning new for the first time, but it helps you to keep your mind sharpened, keep your memory fresh in that sense. So there is no such thing as is there like a diminishing return for more certificates? Because that's one of the questions that I also get as well. I do think that you would never be able to remember everything that you study for. So a refresh is always good.
Oh, thank you very much for your answer. One more question before we move to more insight in investment. What about your opinion if some undergraduate want to find their first job and there are a lot of certification, but what is the first one that they should focus on for the first certification? Maybe a little bit of the job description as well, but I want to hear your opinion.
That's a great question. I get that question very often, especially when they think about like I'm graduating soon or I'm not yet, I'm maybe second year or I'm my final year. Can I do anything to prepare for my entry into the finance sector? So I would say that there are obviously ways that you could go around learning about finance without doing a official certification. But there are so many books there's written about investments, about the markets, about everything else. But here's where I would strongly recommend to kick off with a CFA because of the way that the curriculum is structured, very structured. So you would cover everything in the markets, whatever that you like, whatever that you need to know, but you may not like the history of the US markets or some of the policy changes, some of the policies, how the certain policies or certain market structure came about in the US. So things like this are may not be entirely applicable to us in Asia, but it's important for you to understand how the evolution of things came about in a very structured manner. So I believe the CFA now for undergraduates, you can do level 1, level 2 before you graduate, and level 3, I do remember you need to be a graduate before you can take level 3. So on that, if you look at that arrangement itself, you'll be already 2 papers out with just 1 more to go before you complete all 3 levels of CFA. So I do feel that the CFA curriculum, by and large, would be very foundational for any fresh graduates thinking about what is the first certification that I must take.
Yeah, I would say to love the point that you said that because we are in our team, many people also take the CFA exam, but we found that there are many not relevant information about the investment because you say that they are about the history of the other Europe or the USA. But I think that is a good point that we need to understand about the view on and how the economies go through the history. We learn many things. A lot.
Yes, I'm happy to give it an example as well. So you know that now Fed has got the Fed minutes, right? After the meeting, they would have the Fed minutes.
Yeah.
Now this wasn't something that started from day one. So it was something that they improved and they realized that communication to investor to the market.
Yeah.
So that's something that was put in place. So a lot of the policies, initiatives that you see came over the years, could be a result of crisis, right? Like the Dodd-Frank
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that goes behind it, right? So I do think that the understanding the history helps you understand markets better, help you to be a better investor, and gives you more perspective of why the world is what it is now.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah. Okay. It's time to go to the insight question about. Okay, we may. Oh, before we go to question, for the viewers or the attendant, anyone can. If you have the questions, you can ask, or you can just type in the chat box, and we will ask Kun Richard to answer you. I think that it's not the. I think that it's quite hard to invite Kun Richard to attend the meeting. So it's your precious time to get the answer, right? Okay. Firstly, I think that we will get started. I think that I quite appointed about the global X. I think that you mentioned about the ETF as well. And I think that the Global X, the company you work for, is quite proficient at the thematic ETF. So I think that the ETF and DR is quite new for Thai people. Can you explain about the fundamental of the thematic investment for us?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the question. So I would first share with everyone. So this is a long answer to give you a bit of context and background. Again, we are back to history, but I do think history helps a lot in understanding things forward.
Yeah.
So how thematic investing happened was, if you look at a lot of the great technology that has arrived before us, a lot of the technologies used to be very much in the private space, right? VC, venture capital, growth capital, private equity, and all. And a lot of these opportunities were limited only to institutional investors, because they could get in as LPs to get into these spaces where retail investors would not have a chance to participate in any of this technology growth. So the history behind thematic investing is we wanted to bring the opportunity for a particular theme right at the it could be at the start of the technology growth, as what we call at the innovation stage, to investors like you and me, or investors on the streets like anyone. So when we started Global X in 2008, the idea was, how do we look at thematic investing away from being focused on sectors and from countries or from regions? Like, I would give you an example of let's say you are looking at a tourism theme ETF, something that everyone's popular, like travel, right? Travel and tourism. It is very difficult for you to say, I want to just only buy the airlines, because the airlines would be like an industrial sector. It's very difficult for you to buy hotels only, because they will kind of be in the real estate sector, right? Or if you were to buy some of these travel related names, then it could be in the consumer discretionary or in the technology space. So you will find that you don't get a full exposure of the theme. So what happens then in thematic investing, what we look to do is to offer investor the whole value chain within a theme, by being independent of countries, being independent of sectors, and really looking at where the theme exposure has got this purity, the high level pureness. So one of the criteria whenever we pick the basket of stocks is to look at the percentage of revenues for the companies that is exposed to this theme. So if you look at a name like a tech giant, right, and you say that, okay, they are in the space of, say, something like EV. I'm just giving a random example here. but EV is just 3% of their revenue for this big tech firm. So in this case, when we look at it, is it a pure EV player? Probably not. Could it at some point in time, this EV contribution to the business becomes over 50%? That could be in the future. But as for now, we don't think it's an EV player. It's an EV name. So the idea then behind thematic investing, one, is to first identify the theme. This theme has to be more kind of a long-term structural than cyclical. So we look at structural changes that's across three pillars. One is disruptive technology. So think about AI, cybersecurity. Then you have environment like climate change, like nuclear, like solar. So these are like hydrogen. So that's under environment. And then the last pillar is under demographics, human related like health tech. So we look at three pillars. We identify the themes. And next we look at the number of names that we have globally that fits the theme. And then we work into a basket of 20 to 40 companies within the basket. And it's also important for us to get the liquid names as well, the volumes of these names as well, because if there are too niche, the volume, the ADV is a little bit too little, you may not be able to scale up the size of the ETF because you might have a constraint in getting exposure to that particular stock. Or if you have too many names in the basket itself, it becomes too generic, too general. It doesn't represent the theme as well. So 20 to 40 names would be most of it for thematic basket. And it has got 50% of it, the revenue has to be exposed to that particular theme. And finally, we will make sure that there is a weighting scheme for each of these names in the basket. Like, for example, you would find in a theme like AI, you would have the hyperscalers, right? Which are super mega large cap. And if you do a market weighted approach, then maybe your really small names would not get a chance to be represented in the basket itself. So what we do is that we apply certain weight limits, like maybe 8% is the maximum limit of a name. So that at least when we think about thematic investing, sometimes the most innovation comes in the long tail of the smaller names, where you get exposed to emerging technologies. And these are the names that we want to be in the portfolio as well. So we cannot allow only the large cap to dominate the portfolio. We also want the small mid caps to have a good representation in the portfolio. So once you build that portfolio with a structural theme that looks 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years out in the horizon, a basket of 20 to 40 names, and certain amount of liquidity, size, consideration, weighting. And that's when we then put the whole basket through a back test. And we wanted to make sure that this back test would give a good representation of how the theme has grown and whether this basket represents the development of the theme itself. So that's really the simple and kind of a long answer to your question, but I think it's important to give investors perspective why, one, thematic investing tends to have higher volatility. Two, why the basket is more concentrated than a typical broad sector or broad country index. And three, why the fees are higher than the typical index as well, because I think a lot of investors do not see the amount of investment oversight, investment research that goes into defining a theme and coming up with that methodology versus then to just take a broad index and create an ETF. So that helps investors to better understand why thematic investing has a place in the portfolio, because they tend to be small mid cap, so very different from your exposure to say QQQ, SPY, for example, right, or MSCI World. And also why thematic investing becomes a lot easier for nowadays in what's going on from a macro perspective, thematic investing tends to lend itself very well to investors trying to understand and make sense of certain themes that's happening. For example, like defense technology, which is a theme on its own. So that's kind of how thematic investing came about. And we are seeing this increasing interest in thematic over the last few years. And and even at the start of the year, this year till now, we are seeing that amount of inflows to thematic ETF has grown more than what we expected.
I think that I agree that the ETF, especially in Thailand, is quite new because for Thai people, I think it's quite hard to invest directly in many stocks individually. Even it's quite a small or the intermediate and medium-sized stock because the price per share, but the ETF that we can invest directly and indirectly, but in as a small amount of the number in the ETF, it's about 20 to 40, right? As you said.
Yes.
And I think that many Thai people have the question about the difference between the thematic ETF or the theme and other wording is called the factor investment. Can you explain about the difference between the smart beta and the thematic itself?
Sure. I think that's a great question. So
Yeah.
when we think about your typical pharma French factor investing, it used to be a lot focus on large versus small, value versus growth, high versus low, and all these factors. So it's still very relevant, I would say, for factor investing. Now,
Okay.
what has changed, first and foremost, is what has changed. If you look at how the market has been, value investing used to work all the way until global financial crisis, all the way for the last 100 over years. Value investing has worked very well, right? If you remember Benjamin Graham in the 1928, right, all the way. So it's been 100 over years, 140 years to be exact, or maybe even more than 170 years for value investing. And then there was this shift into growth investing, right? Because value became a little bit more cyclical, and it was harder to find value names that has double-digit earnings growth compared to growth names. So growth names got beaten up, prices got expensive, but that's what you pay for somewhat of a stability and quality as well. Now, that approach, we still think that it works in portfolios, especially if you want to think about where factors could add alpha. And we're also seeing that in terms of the active ETFs that are coming online, where there are factor plays into these active ETFs. On the other hand, what thematic investing does is that we look more at how the growth of the trend is taking shape in the market itself. So I'll give you an example. Like we look at how the sales revenue, the revenue of a company exposed to that theme has grown over the years. We will look at the deviation of that growth itself. Like if the sales is, for example, year one is 10%, and then year two is 5%, and then year three goes up to 50%, and then year four goes up. So we start to question ourselves, is that thematic or is that more cyclical? So taking out that factor approach where you can apply to a cyclical approach, thematic investing tend to look at it more from, is this trend getting well covered and adopted by the market? Is it changing the way consumer behaviors are? Is it changing the way that the technology adoption, the pace of adoption is? And all these becomes questions that we want to answer through, one, the numbers that we see on the P&L of companies. Two, we look at the evolution of the technology. Three, we look at the economics of the technology. Let's say, for example, like to train a token for ChatGPT, that price for training a token has fallen over 90% in the last 18 months.
Yeah.
So it becomes cheaper to train the model. And this cheaper training helps to create a lot of applications like robotics, for example, autonomous driving, right? Robotaxis and all. So those things tend not to lend itself well to a factor approach. That's when we look at the underlying trend growth. We look at the underlying technology development. We look at the cost perspective, and then we weigh against like, well, how would that play out in 5 to 10 years in terms of the total addressable market? So those conversations are what really drive thematic investing over factor investing. But for investors who are looking at factor, for example, like they're looking at factor, whether it could be more focus on the dividend, it could be focused on value, momentum, growth. I still think these are great opportunities, and these are great techniques that you can employ in your portfolio when you think about factor rotation and all that. It's just that over the longer term, we do want something that takes away the noise from the market and really see where the growth plays out over the longer run.
Yeah. Well, great. Get a good scenery here. Okay, I think that it's quite maybe a joke in Thailand that in Thailand many people still turn to be the value investor, because we normally say that we don't take a loss if we not the sell stock because there are I think that it's quite hard to find the value stock itself in Thailand, because I think that as you know that in Thailand there are not too many the main driver that they will not like in the tech company, there are not many in Thailand as well. So I think that now I think that we at least for the GPA attendant, we will know more about the thematic, about the perspective of the thematic inside that we need to know about the driver or the sort of revenue. We need to know about the insight, more insight about the nature of that company as well. I think that's very thanks for your sharing as well. So before we move to the another question, I think that we have the one question in Thai, but I will ask you about turn back to the about the certification. Kun Kritin asks about he just passed the CFA level 1, and now he have work in the bank. I think the bank, the genuine bank sector, but he want to turn to be in the investment or the finance one. I think the sales side or something. How he can start learning about which skill he need to take on first before turning to the investment industry from the banking.
Right. So just a bit on my background. I wanted to say that my interest has always been in asset management. So I came from Singapore Airlines, and after CFA, I wanted to do asset management. So I was very clear. Within finance, there's banks, there's insurance, there's capital markets, there is investment banking. But I only wanted to do asset management. So I could answer his question to give him some perspective. So in the field of asset management, there are many different roles, I would say. And the asset management industry has also grown to have differences in the way that the structures are, or the organization looks differently. So in ETFs, we don't have portfolio management. For us is slightly different from active mutual fund house. Portfolio management for us is talking about rebalancing, talking about making sure the basket that represents the ETF. Whereas compared, you talk about portfolio management in an active fund house could be looking at equities to add to the portfolio, buy, sell, overweight calls and all. So I would say that to the question is, first, you have to know where exactly you want to end up in asset management, because now there are roles that kind of sit in between, like between the investment manager and the sales. So they kind of call themselves as client portfolio managers. They are as good as the investment managers, just that they don't manage the portfolio, but they kind of help the investment managers to talk to clients, to help clients to structure their portfolios, to look at how they could add value to the client, and also explain out some of the performance or where the fund is overweight and underweight. So that's an area that I feel that is a little easier to get in. And the other area that you can get in is also in terms of being a product, to be the product specialist. I think that's another area you can consider as well, because if you work closely enough with mutual funds and unit trusts, you probably would get to know a lot of the fund houses. And the last thing that I would say to this, that if your interest is purely in equity research, say you really want to be an analyst, then it is very, very important to think about where your interest is. For example, there could be job opportunities as a local domestic equity analyst, more than perhaps someone who is focused on EM equities, or someone who is focused on US tech equities. So it's going to be something that you need to spend time to think about, like, where's my career path, right? What are the roles that are available if I want to do equity research? Like, what sectors are available? And then that's how you're going to build your career. Like, not many people that I know, fresh young guys, want to be a fixed income analyst. Very few. Everybody wants to do tech stocks, right? Yeah. Everybody wants to analyze the Max 7. And it becomes a very, very, very busy kind of place where you may not find yourself having as much opportunity than if you say, I will be a fixed income analyst, or I would be a boring consumer staple sector analyst. So it's kind of having to navigate your interest plus the opportunities in the market where there is a lot of analysts, right? And finally asking yourself the question is, I may not be sure of this particular sector, but let's jump in and take it from there.
Wow, thanks. Okay, let me translate into Thai forคุณกิติ a little bit ครับก็สำหรับทางบ้านครับจริงๆแล้วคุณริชาร์ดเนี่ยก็บอกว่าจริงๆแล้วมันเป็นขึ้นอยู่กับผาดนะฮะทีมริชาร์ดเนี่ยไม่ได้จบตรงนี้อาจจะยิ่งกว่าพวกเราเนาะหรือว่าหลายๆคนที่ในที่ฟังทาง TPA อยู่นะฮะอาจารย์เคยทำสิงคโปร์ไอไลน์นะฮะโอเคก็สอบ TPA เหมือนกันเริ่มสตาร์ทนะฮะแล้วก็เขาก็บอกว่าจริงๆแล้วมันขึ้นอยู่กับมุมมองนะครับแล้วก็โกของคุณกิตตินเนาะว่าอยากจะเป็นด้าน analyst เองก็ตามนะครับเขาบอกว่ายกตัวอย่างเพื่อนเขาก็อยากจะเป็น analyst ทางด้าน fixed income นะครับซึ่งจริงๆมันน้อยมากนะครับหลังทุกคนยิ่งที่ไทยด้วยเนาะไม่ใช่เฉพาะที่สิงคโปร์ก็อยากทำพวกเทคหรือทำใส่กึ่งว่าเพื่อคล้ายเหมือนsmall พวกคล้ายๆเกี่ยว VC หรืออะไรก็ตามพวกนี้แต่คราวนี้เนี่ยมันก็มีช่องว่างนะในถ้าคุณกิตตินเข้ามาก็อาจจะต้องค่อยดูว่าเป้าหมายนะครับและช่องว่างในตลาดของเราเนี่ยจริงๆทุกวันนี้เราก็มีจริงๆแล้วอันนี้เป็นมุมมอง TPA ด้วยเนาะก็คือว่ามันมีกระทั่งแบบว่าเครื่องมือต่างๆครับที่เราเห็นว่าเอเจนติกนู้นนี้ตอนนี้เราก็ต้องเห็นช่องว่างแล้วจุดไหนเนี่ยคนจบมามันเกินจำนวนงานเนี่ยเราควรจะมีสกิลด้านไหนมากขึ้นเนาะแน่นอนการสอบคุณกิตตินผ่านสอบมาระดับหนึ่งได้เห็นภาพรวมแล้วสุดท้ายก็ต้องรู้ว่าคุณกิตตินชอบอะไรกันแน่นะครับหรือเป็นด้าน Asset Management นะครับในไทยซึ่งก็จะแตกต่างจริงแต่สิงคโปร์นะครับเราก็ต้องมีสกิลทางด้านผู้คนเพิ่มมาด้วยครับอันนี้ก็จริงแล้วทักษะอย่างที่บอกนะคุณไผ่เราสามารถหาได้ทั่วไปคุณริชาร์ดเขาเคยบอกจากคำถามเดิมว่าจริงๆแล้วอาจจะไม่ต้องเทคเซอร์แบบเขาก็ได้เนาะเดี๋ยวเขาจะเอาอีก2เซอร์นะซึ่งผมว่าปีนี้น่าจะ4-5เซอร์ นะครับแต่ว่ามันหาได้ทั่วไปนะฮะนี่ทางกอล์ฟเองก็แชร์พวกบทความอะไรฟรีๆอยู่ตลอดนะครับแล้วก็มีคอมมูนิตี้ในวัน22นี้แล้วก็มีอีกครั้งนะครับเขาก็เต็มแล้วรอรอบหน้าละกันนะคนไทยใช่ไหม
ครับผม
Okay, thank you คุณ Richard. Okay, next question. Could you คุณไผ่ ask?
Oh, okay. Yeah, Kun Richard, it really interesting from your sharing earlier. So I wanna ask more follow-up question. I think you already cover the global X strategic approach. That really informative. So I wanna ask some question about which team in this year or maybe in the near future that are exciting. I think some are maybe early to invest, but are in your opinion, which is look most promising for this year and maybe a little near future.
Wow, we'll take the lecture for this. We also take the lecture. Yeah, please, for your point of view.
So I would first give a bit of the background on the theme, but it's a great question. So we have seen, especially like when you think about the new world order that we are in right now, it used to be very much a liberal order where US was the superpower, right? And everyone knows that US was superpower. And then we have got different organizations, global organizations like NATO, UN, and then we look at a lot like trade. We look at a lot like policies that for globalization and all, and that has given to a new order that we are seeing now. So that itself is very important to think of it from a background macro picture, because that will tell you what I'm about to say next. So because of the change in the new world order, you see the rise of China as a new power. Right, you see like the second largest in the economy in the world, and then they have their own technology that's moving very fast, and they are also trying to come up with new initiative, new alliances like the Belt Road Initiative, right? Like the AIIB, which is the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, to look at how we could then create different sort of different coalitions or regional blocks, as you say it. So there are a few things that stands out for us. One is we do think that supply chain will move from what we call as just in time to just in case. Every country is thinking about that industrial build out, keeping that raw material for themselves, whether is it critical minerals, metals, or anything you can think about. Countries are thinking about making sure they are no longer just depending on others for supply of raw material. They're thinking for themselves, right? Making sure I have enough supply, enough reserves. And that's also one of the reasons why you see US is going after critical minerals. And there is that government investment into some of the mining names in the US, trying to break away from the dependence on China for rare earth and critical materials. So this supply chain dislocation is one, and that means to say a lot of the commodities that we talk about, copper, silver, lithium, could be the other ones like your nickel, cobalt. So commodity as a whole, you will see that we are seeing a new super cycle. The last super cycle was around 2011. That was where you saw a lot of it kept coming in from China because of China globalization entering the WTO in 2000, and then there was this huge investment in China, physical infrastructure, real estate, and all. So commodity boom all the way. So now we are seeing this second wave, and the other part of this commodity boom is a lot driven by electrification. The needs for electricity, the need for power, the needs to drive data center, right? Chips manufacturing, you need some commodities and rare earth as well. So commodities continue to be a theme that we stick very closely to. And if inflation continue to much higher, then we see that the correlation between commodities, prices, and inflation tends to stick together positively. So that's one theme. The other theme that we see is defense. Now there are two sides of the coin itself. One is about making sure that you are self-protected, which is why you increase your defense spending, like how NATO is moving from a 2% defense spending to a 5% defense spending. And that's also driving about a lot of the names in the US, the big primes, as well as the European defense tech as well, defense names as well. Now there is a shift in that defense. It used to be just all the big primes, the traditional defense, but now we are seeing what happens in the Middle East. A lot of it is drone that is taking place, drone warfare, drone engagement, right? And that's where we are seeing that because drones are so much cheaper, easier to produce, faster. So we are seeing that shift in terms of the technology that's being employed in warfare as well, both on the software as well as on the drone technology. So defense is the second theme. So commodities, defense. The third theme I'll talk about is infrastructure. We see a lot of infrastructure, especially for some of the grid networks that needs to get ready for that whole EV revolution, charging infrastructure, data center and all. That grid network have to improve, have to change to accommodate smart grids where you can move around the different supplies of electricity based on the load at different parts of the country, at different parts of the day as well, different timing in the day. So there's a smart grid. And that also talks about the battery storage system. So to that, I would say infrastructure is building out as well. So all in defense tech, we talk about the commodities, which is, if you think about it, commodities is everything right in the middle of the rest of the other technologies like AI, right? You need commodities as well. AI needs power. AI needs certain rare earth to go into chips making. So you need that particular commodities as well. And then infrastructure is critically important. So we recently launched a piece of research on our website. It's very easy to read. It's called High Assets, Low Obsolescence, or HALO, HALO. So it talks about a lot of these firms which are moving away from the asset-light approach into more of the physical assets. And low obsolescence means to say they do not get write-off and they do not get depreciated as quickly because of the long structural lifespan. So we do think that these are the ones that are going to play out. The other ones on AI, we still a firm believer in AI, and that itself is something that we do see that coming of AI and agentic AI as well as autonomous driving, robotics will continue to play out. So these are the four themes that we look into this year as well as next year, or even in the next 2 to 3 years. We still think these are very positive themes on the back of what's happening globally.
It's really interesting, but I have one question before I translate to the viewer for a short time. So how about your view about the valuation of the tech company? Even it's quite dropped a while in the political risk nowadays, but how about your view about the forecast, the growth of the semiconductor as well as the agentic AI company that as well that many sources told us that the earning can grow fast enough to take about the catch up about the price. So the valuation now is quite okay. But how about you will? Is it still okay or quite expensive to invest in now?
This we look at it at this we look at it slightly broader across a long time horizon. So in our research, we have looked at how there will be re-rating of valuations, and also when earnings catches up, we see that repricing goes up as well. So exactly to your point, you pointed out very nicely that we have seen this earnings played out over the last 10, 20 years, especially if you look at US equities, S&P 500, for example. And each time we see that earnings growth continue to grow, we see PE goes higher. So we still feel that as long as the earnings will likely play out, and that will continue to much higher. Now, tactically speaking, there are opportunities, if you think about it, to accumulate positions in the near term, given what's going on in the market, the concerns over higher inflation or higher input prices that could drive chip prices higher, or shortages, memory chips, for example. But if you were to look at how, on the broader scheme of things, these companies have managed to each and every decade, you would have seen how they have managed to innovate and restructure themselves so that their P&L look better, and that naturally the market will reprice them higher as well. So we do see this continue to play out, and the theme itself in terms of the demand that is coming out, we also feel very bullish about the demand that is playing out, because if there are still many areas where AI could continue to grow in, right? Even when we look at something like robotics, for example, humanoids. Now, where we look at humanoids, definitely where it matters is the technology, right? The AI, the LLM, the brains that be able to process information. So we look at the humanoid markets. We think that it will be like how the vehicle market started back in the early late 1800s to early 1900s, where we saw cars coming out. That adoption rate would be similar to that, where you could have a humanoid robot for service, not so much for industrial purpose, but for service. Service means to say in terms of your service industry, your service sectors, or even possibly at home. So we do see that once that market grows, then the underlying technologies, the hardware, would accompany growth as well. So that's one of our forecasts. And the other side of our forecast is, if you look at something like using robotics in surgery, like how we have seen for a name that we are probably familiar with, Intuitive Surgical, that use robots for surgery. We have seen also they have grown by 10x the number of surgical operations that's performed by their robots. So this continues to tell us that the total addressable market for AI, in terms of a lot of applications, would continue to grow in the years to come. And once training cost gets cheaper, we do see the rate of adoption gets higher. So there is this interesting thing that I always like to share with over kind of any education or coffee chat, is that what we see is that interestingly, technology gets cheaper, it actually increases the market size. So it's not because it's cheaper, therefore it affects the P&L of the tech companies, but in fact it increases, enlarges the total addressable market. So in that aspect, the cheaper technology gets bigger adoption, results in higher revenue growth than sticking the price to at the same price point.
Okay, wow, thank you,คุณ Richard. Let me translate for the attendant. ครับคุณที่จริงแล้วคุณมีคำถามของคุณไผ่ได้ถามว่าแล้วทีมในปีนี้เนี่ยทาง Global X นะครับโฟกัสแล้วก็มีความสนใจด้านไหนเนาะจริงแล้วคุณ Richard นะครับก็ตั้งเซ็นเตอร์บนตัวพวกเขาเรียกว่า commodity ต่างๆนะครับพวกแร่ธาตุต่างๆแน่นอนครับคุณ Richard ก็ได้แนะนำไว้ว่ามันก็สัมพันธ์กับอีก3ธีมที่เหลือเนาะนะฮะไม่ว่าจะเป็น agentic นะครับเพราะว่าถึงแม้ว่าราคามันจะดูสูงในปัจจุบันนะครับแต่พวก earning ต่างๆมันก็โตได้ตามเนาะแล้วก็ เรียกว่า addressable market เนี่ยขยายขึ้นเรื่อยๆนะครับเพราะว่าจะเป็นทางด้านเทลเองก็ตามนะครับที่ใช้เนาะพวก EV พวกเขาเรียกว่า smart รถขับเคลื่อนอัตโนมัติอะไรเป็นต้นนะครับแล้วก็อีก2ธีมนะครับที่คุณชัดแนะนำนะครับก็จริงๆแล้วก็มีทางด้าน defense ด้วยใช่ไหมคนไทยครับที่เพิ่มเข้ามานะครับก็แน่นอนทางด้าน geopolitics นะครับก็อาจจะเป็นพวกนั้นนะครับแล้วก็สุดท้ายจะเป็นด้าน infrastructure เนาะก็แน่นอนครับเกี่ยวข้องกับทางด้าน community เองก็ตามวัฒนธรรมต่างๆนะครับแล้วก็ตรงเนี้ยก็ได้รับดีมานด์จาก AI เช่นกันนะฮะดังนั้นเนี่ยก็เซ็นเตอร์ที่เขาเรียกว่าตัว supply เลยก็คือพวก community ต่างๆนะครับโอเคI think that we have the next question from คุณโอม I think that you have met each other again คุณโอม from the Flip Capital can คุณไผ่ ask about this question to Richard I think that quite familiar with คุณโอม right คุณ Richard
Okay it's me Om Richard nice to see you last year in person one of my question I would like to ask you in about your certification you have which one is your most preferable based on your work experience not the serious question just want to know your thought
Okay, so this is my personal opinion here. It's just really from my experience where I felt that it really moves the dial. So CFA tends to be very much about fundamentals. And sometimes I find that what you learn, it could be a little difficult to be able to say that, hey, I can talk about it or I can be very good at it because it covers so much, right? So when I think about which one that has a nice balance of learning it and applying it in my day to day, I would say that the one that I have in mind is would say let me try to say it. I wouldn't say there is one, but I would say probably there's two. Okay, so one of it is a CFP. I'm not sure if CFP is something they offer in Thailand, but why CFP is a lot because most of the time investment is very very individual. You really want to know how it affects you, your life goals, your retirement plans. How does it help you become a better investor? What are some of the emotions that you go through? And how do I manage my portfolio at a certain life age? At what age? And what's what? So I do think that the CFP is very helpful in my day-to-day conversation. And the other one that I would speak about too is this what do you call that? This thing that's called the CETF. But ETF is just purely on ETF. Just purely ETF. So it tells you all about the growth of ETF because ETF has grown by a lot, right? Used to be something just a basic tracker. It became something like a smart beta, and then there's thematic, and then now there's inverse leverage, and then there is a active ETF, and then there is a options ETF. So I do think that this CETF gives anyone out there looking to understand how different ETF works, and it's very relevant because the cost is directly written by practitioners on day-to-day basis on the changes and how someone could just simply understand how ETF works by taking one paper in CETF. And these two that I mentioned, I feel they are more palatable in terms of the time you spend. Is a little easier to manage because CFP is 6 papers, so you can take one at a time at your own pace. And then CETF is just 1 paper. So I do think that these two are probably, whether you are investment markets, you are facing clients, you are facing individual investors, I think these are the ones that I found very useful to kind of be a simple way to get some certifications behind your name.
Wow.
Okay.
I think that one of the attendants said that it's very good question. We totally agree that it's a good question and it's quite only you can answer this question as well because you know a little bit. I think that we as a GPA may need a few hours more to talk about only about the certification as well for the next time. Okay, and Kun Om has tried to finish the CFP. Yeah, I think maybe Kun Om may contact Kun Richard directly in the LinkedIn because we can't give you the answer as good as Kun Richard. So I think goodbye. I think that is okay about the one question remaining left, right? For the questions. Or is
Yeah. I think that's all. Yeah, just some response to Kun Richard. Okay, I think on that the last question, right? So CETF.
I think it's called CETF, right, Kun Richard?
CETF. CETF.
Yeah, it's น่าจะเป็น ETF เป็นเซอร์สำหรับ ETF อย่างเดียวครับI think that the คุณหนุ่ม one of the I think is one of the most reputation guys in the financial planner. I think that you may need have to meet each other as well about the คุณหนุ่ม yeah okay คุณฝ่าย please go through the last question. I think that tomorrow Kun Richard have another exam to take. We will not.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. Okay, Kun Richard. Thank you so much again for being here with us today. I think this was very insightful conversation, and it's helped us better to understand these long-term structural shifts. Creating new opportunity for investor who attend today, and for we will publish in our YouTube channel, and anyone that happen to listen to us today, and we truly appreciate your insight. We hope to have you with us again in the future. Do you have anything to say to the audience before we end this?
It's quite hard to invite you to join the meeting. Try to send direct message to the Kun Richard LinkedIn, and hope he will accept to attend the meeting.
I would first like to thank GPA and both for facilitating the session. I really feel very much for what you do, and I definitely be very happy to contribute more to the knowledge of the community and my experiences. And because I cover a lot of different grounds today, there might be a lot of information that might not be easy to understand when you just listen to it for the very first time. And especially I'm doing it in English. I wish there was a Thai subtitles below that could help the investors. So I try to go a little slower, but I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to help connect the dots for some of the young investors and young finance professionals looking to grow their career. So I'm available. You can feel free to reach out to me, or you can post your questions to GPA, and we will I'll be very happy to provide some insights on that as well.
Oh yeah, a lot comment in the chat also requiring that we have to make some subtitle as well, Kun T.
Sure. For next time, yeah. Kun Thai, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for your time. That so ก็ขอบคุณผู้ชมทุกท่านนะครับแล้วก็bye Richard ขอบคุณครับ
Yeah, bye Kun Richard. Hope we meet each other at the end of here to grab some beverage. Thank you, Kun Richard. Bye bye.
All right, and take care, everyone. Stay safe.
For tomorrow exam.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you so much. And I look forward to see you.
Yeah, looking forward to another definition back inside your name in the near future. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you so
All right.
much
Have a good evening. Bye bye.
ครับ Richard
สวัสดีครับ